Welcome to Agsolutley Fabulous. My name is Gillian Fennell, also known as Station Mum 101. I love everything about agriculture, especially the people and especially communicating about what makes Australian ag so special.
And I'm Katja Williams, a beef, cattle and cropping farmer from Dubbo, New South Wales. And I love all things ag, and I'm also known as the ultimate farm wife. Together, we are Agsolutley Fabulous, and we are talking all things agriculture beyond the headlines.
And we can't wait to give our opinion to you, and we hope you enjoy it.
So let's get into today's episode. Welcome to episode 4 of Agsolutley Fabulous. Today we're going to be talking about crisis response in Australia for both fire, floods and drought. And we'll also be giving a wrap-up of the AgriFutures. Gillian was there on the ground and I've been covering the media since. So we'll be talking about the award winner, Tanya Egerton,
I think. Sorry, Tanya.
And Grace Larson, who was our runner-up. I have interviewed Grace myself on The Ultimate Farm Wife. She is under our Heritage Orchard interview, if you'd like to follow up and listen to that. But before we jump into today's episodes, Gillian, let's do a little bit of chit-chat. We need a kitchen update and we need to know what else is happening on the farm this week.
All right, kitchen update. I have cupboards with doors. And we've got the most amazing backpacker at the moment because I personally despise painting. He's painted the whole kitchen. We're moving on to the laundry next week, and still waiting for the top, the oven and the sink to arrive. Thank you very much, Harvey Norman. Had to cancel that order and seek my goods elsewhere. And the sinks they're just somewhere on a truck or in the shed somewhere, but they're due to arrive on Saturday. So fingers crossed everything will be fully operational this time next week. Can't wait, fingers. And then when it's all done, I'll put some photos up and stuff when we get all the furniture back in and everything, because it was, apart from all the dirty old mice living in the walls and the skirting board notes that the previous people left for us, it was lots. It's incredibly different. I just can't, every time I just can't believe myself. I'll be so glad to move out of the carport though, because my mother-in-law's dog stole the sandwich toaster and ate it on the front bench, on the front lawn. They eat a load of dogs, steal bread, the milk, anything they could possibly conceive. They've had the kitchen knives out on the lawn. I'm just over it. I don't enjoy camping at the best of times. I just cannot wait to get back into my house where I belong, away from the flies and the dogs and everything else. But it's been 20 years in the making, so I cannot wait.
Very excited to be.
Actually, you've been doing some exciting things too, haven't you?
Oh, it's just been another one of those weeks where I've literally had to keep notes for you, and I'll do it in really brief dot points for you because so much to catch up in our chit chat, but so much to share with the audience as well. So farm-wise, spring is in full swing here, so the hay fever has kicked in. I have atrocious hay fever, so usually I'll try and attack it with local honey, so honey that's being harvested in spring, that's got all the pollen and everything in it. I find that most helpful. So good pro tip there. If you're not near a chemist and you're wanting to grab something, it's got to be local honey though. So that is exciting. The Ultimate Farm Wife page is live for the conference. So the conference we've talked about, the Farm Wives conference happening in Dubbo, the Instagram and Facebook pages are live for those. So if everyone is wanting to, or whoever is interested in attending that Farm Wives conference, you've got 2 points of contact for that. It is the same content rolling out on both pages.
Oh, and you don't have to actually be a wife or want to be a wife. It's just a really it might be a wife of a farm, might be a farmer who's also a woman who wants some supportive networks and those sorts of things. So don't think you have to be married to a man or married at all to fit in and participate. Everyone's welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Females of agriculture is our target market for that. It is the practical tips that we are compiling into workshops and all sorts of things for you all. It is practical. You will go away with resources, skills, new friends, new connections, and just have a blast while you're here in Dubbo. Kids-wise, so by the time this airs, I will well and truly be third trimester with baby number 4. I've learned after, the other kids that third trimester is when, as much as I don't want to, I need to start backing off and giving myself a little bit of rest and recuperating. So the filming for the pregnancy diaries for that is well in the works. So I'll start editing that soon, because I'll try and have more time inside. Try being the key word. But that's something that was asked to be put out on YouTube by some of the community members who, different dynamic when you're having kids on the farm to other places. So they just wanted to know some of the physical logistics of that. On the weekend, I shot in the ISSF Western Plains Championships for air pistol and 50-metre pistol, which went really well. Ended up coming second in D grade air pistol for women, which was excellent. So that was with a new personal best. So very excited about that. So let's jump into crisis response.
Yeah, or lack thereof, I guess you could probably say in some cases, and appropriateness and who they ask to implement these programs boggles the mind sometimes, really, because people want to help, but sometimes just rather they didn't.
Well, I guess where I wanted to start, for our non-agricultural listeners, or for those who haven't gone through national disaster or natural disaster, I can't even say it properly. We're talking fire, floods, drought impact, which affect farms and the food chain by loss of crops, livestock, increase to disease, and destruction of infrastructure such as fencing, irrigation systems, our housing, machinery, stockpiles, and other agricultural infrastructure that goes into what makes agriculture and how these disasters impact that.
And it's interesting, because we're by nature isolated, we're out on our farms and we've got access to machinery and those sorts of things, so we generally help ourselves and that sort of thing. But the rural communities as well, when their infrastructure goes out, they aren't able to just hook up a generator or whatever, because it's, a larger scale and you've got all these people, and the distance some of these communities and some of these farms are from help can often be really stressful and really challenging, and especially you throw kids into the mix. If there's little kids who are vulnerable, people's pets, haven't been really fortunate that we've only ever had drought here, which is it's stalled, crushing, destroying, everything you've ever seen. It is tolerable in the sense that you still have a house to live in. You still, your pets are still okay, your kids are still okay. You cannot even begin to imagine the strain and stress of going through a fire or a flood event. Yeah, and I don't think we give people enough credit for being resilient in those circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also not while we're in it as well, it's rebuilding and what happens after the crisis has subsided. So yes, you're trying to outrun fires, you're trying to save people, livestock, machinery, housing, during those fires, during those floods. But it's also, okay, what happens when the fires are all put out, when the water subsides, when you've got to rebuild your farming business after 5+ years of drought? These are the times where people need additional help, but because it's not happening and it's not live and it's not being broadcast on mainstream media, a lot of the funding will run out, or a lot of the awareness will run out, or, a lot of the support is withdrawn because it's not crisis primetime news anymore. Mm-hmm. And they're probably areas that I think that we could definitely work on as a country a little bit better.
And it's because in rural and regional areas and remote areas, we're already struggling for access to health and wellbeing resources, especially mental health support. We joke saying after the last drought, we've all got PTSD, the whole community has, because you're living in a crisis day in, day out, and there's no end in sight. And then one day it does rain and you don't know what to do with yourself. You're still in sort of hyper-aware, stress-driven mode. You still can't leave the property because now you've had rain, you've got to do all these things that you couldn't when it didn't rain. and there's just no access to those support services, and it puts a lot of strain on the family unit because you rely on each other's counsellors and support, which sometimes isn't healthy. And it's I don't think, so those are things we need all the time. That we'll just fly a counsellor to do some one-on-one sessions immediately after the event. We need to have access to that all the time, and everyone does. I'm not just saying it's just country people, because across the board, across the whole world, probably we don't have enough access. But it's really noticeable when you're in a crisis situation and then you don't have access to those resources.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely those follow-ups that are so important, because a lot of the time you'll think that you're okay. Or when I talk to people, they're like, I thought I was okay. But then when the season turned dry, or when it wouldn't stop raining, it was then that they realised, I haven't done the internal work, and I probably haven't done as much external work on the farm as I could have to prepare me for the next time, because they still hadn't worked on that trauma. They still hadn't worked on that getting out of crisis mode. So they were still very reactive rather than really planning on the structure, because you've got to unpack that. And so you need someone's help to do that. When I took to Dr. Google and was like, right, what are the first steps that people are taking when a crisis situation takes on, whether that is fire or flood or drought? And a lot of the resources out there were like, well, your first point of contact is going to be your bank. It's going to be your accountant. It's going to be your regional, your rural financial services and Department of Primary Industries for your information, for your steps, for making sure that you're communicating with your bank and the accountant. Okay, looks like the season's going to go this way, or it looks like we might not be able to put the down payments or continue those payments off on, the mortgage or the loan or whatever it is that's going forward. Let's create a plan of attack. If you haven't got those documents in place, yep, sure. Is that where we really need to be going when shit starts to hit the fan? Where would you start, Gillian?
Like, you need to start with because it's like all well and good to say, ring your bank. What if you can't bring yourself to pick up the phone? And that's how people get in a hole. And I have had chronic depression myself since my late teens. And I don't, people say, it's so, follow this checklist. What if you can't? And, bank managers and those things, they haven't been through a crisis. It's literally their job. So reach out to your clients. And I know a lot of, especially stock and station agents, when they're dealing with people in drought, they're exposed to trauma themselves, because they don't have anyone else to talk to. The agent comes to assess the stock, and they just sort of end up being in the recipient of the people trauma to them and stuff, which is, also something to be aware of. But we're talking, let's be fair here, we're talking about banks who make $billions a year. Train your staff to deal with this shit. Put the right people in place to help your staff deal with this shit, to help your clients deal with this shit, because you don't want to have to sell people up. We don't want to be sold up. But we're also not in a position to be able, especially after a crisis event, to deal with these sorts of things. And that applies for everyone. If you're a little old lady and your husband of 70 years dies, instead of you having to shuffle everything and go to the bank should be reaching out to you and helping you, because you've probably banked with them the last 50 years. Come on. Banks, you like to talk about emotional and social governance, the ESG requirements. How about you put those words into action and do a bit better by your clients? I think is probably the best thing that could happen here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely needs to be more communication and definitely more conversations around that being mutually beneficial for both. Yes, we need to reach out, but also when you're reaching out, what are you asking the questions? And is the person who, most of the time, they're on the end of the phone. Do they know, or do they have a procedure or a checklist or someone who can actually help you with the situation you're in, with the questions you're going to ask? Because that needs to be helpful and that needs to be mutual and joining. So I do think that is somewhere where we need to focus more attention on in the future. AgFabs, what do you think? Do you think that is a key part that we need to focus on? And what other industries, apart from our banks and our accountants, do you think needs to have that reciprocal relationship and work on that? While we're talking about, funding bodies and people who are reaching out and we'll add some non-for-profit organisations in there. It was really interesting to hear like what's happening in the media about, drought and crisis organisations, particularly when we thought we were going to go back into another dry, when we thought that this part of the country was going to go back into drought. I know that there are other places, and we are praying for rain for you in Australia because we are such a big nation, that are back in drought. They did go back into drought this past summer, and a lot of those places are still in drought. They have not come back out. So when they were talking about, just reach out to Drought Angels, to Blaze Aid, to whoever the non-for-profit organisations are and charities that are in that area, they don't have the volunteers, they don't have the funding, and the rise in living expenses across the board has really impacted in donations, whether that is physical product, whether that is volunteer time, whether that is actual finance and dollars to be allocated in running those charities, has really impacted the industry and that access point as well.
And this is a really interesting thing, because the Future Drought Fund, all these billions of dollars, was set up to try and make the whole of agriculture more resilient, so you don't need to tap charities and stuff on the shoulders. There's always going to be a need for charities, especially when you're talking about sudden natural disasters, big storms, all those sorts of things, and that's unavoidable. Where the Future Fund is designed to help us be more resilient and to make our businesses better. And I think what it's done is very little, to be completely honest. If I have to sit through, or if I get offered another goddamn financial management course on how to read a balance sheet, yes, or how to speak to my bank, I think I will gouge my own eyes out with a spoon, because that's not making me more resilient. That's teaching me to suck eggs. Like, if I'm at the position I am, I can't read a balance sheet and a profit and loss and talk to my accountant. Like, what am I deserve to be in business for a start? And the fact that I don't know if there are farmers out there who can't do that, because if there is, that's a frightening thought. And second of all, there's so many of them that they need to have these bespoke programs to teach us to be more financially aware. That's also quite frightening and doesn't say much about our industry. And it's because there's so many things that are tied up in this. It's not, I don't think it's helping the people who need to be helped, and it's not giving them the help that they need. Because when you look at like charities as well, the hay one is a good example. And this is nothing against the people who organise these, because they are fulfilling a need and they are helping a lot of people who are desperate. But what it does, it distorts the market. So you've got everything sorted. You need to buy 4 road trains full of hay. But the charities got in first, and because they don't have to worry about their balance sheet, because they're on donations and funds like that, they can afford to pay more. And you can't blame the farmer selling that hay for wanting to get the best price he possibly can, because that's literally the job. It's a commodity. You get the best price you can. So it blows your budget out of whack, and then all of a sudden you're without hay. And it's like any sort of subsidy, any sort of those sorts of things, it distorts the market. And I don't know what the answer is to these sorts of issues. And it's something I think that the Future Drought Fund could probably spend a bit more time in exploring those issues and addressing those sorts of things, rather than teaching people who have been running a successful business for at least 20 years at the very minimum, how to read their financial statements.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it gets a bit patronising after a while.
Yeah. And I'm 100% with you. Like, with a lot of the programs that are being rolled out, the first thing they want to talk to you is your balance sheet, is your cash flow, is your business plan. It's like, we are way beyond that. But also, let's bring it back to people. It is the people that run the business. They need to work on their confidence. They need to work on their value. They need to work on what's going to get me through the next day to day, because when those crisis hits, that's what it is. It is, right, we have a plan. Let's work through what's going to drive us to get through. With, the hay charities and everything like that. Okay, now we're all competing against a charity to get the fodder that we need, because they've identified we need fodder. But yeah, we're in that competition, that struggle against it. If people did get loads of hay, whether you're getting loads of hay at the moment through another drought fund, whether you received it in the last big drought that was nationwide that lasted, around 5 years, if you did get donated hay, give a shout out, tell us what you thought, what was the process like, because there was also a lot of farmers who reached out to me during that time and said, we don't qualify for charity. We don't qualify for funding. We don't qualify for grants, but we can get a low interest loan that we still have to pay back. But we don't qualify for any of the help that's been put up, but we can get ourselves in more debt.
And it's those sorts of things that, and I know there's, every time there's a drought, like farmers are seen as running around putting their hands out and those sorts of things. And there is an element, we can't deny that there is an element of our industry that have their hand out every single time, and it's poor farm me, and I'm so important because I grow all your food, so you better prop my business up. But I'm proud to say that is not the norm anymore. They are the exception. They get all the news and press because no one loves anything like a sad story like the media does, because dusty, poor person in their big hat crying on the fence line. We've all seen the pictures like that. And that's what the Future Drought Fund and the programs are trying to stop. But there's always going to be that element, whatever. It's those sorts of things that need a national agriculture strategy. So how much does food security mean to us? Like, and at what point do you make does their policymakers, yes, we want to keep these people in business because they keep the rural communities going and the people who live there and the schools and the hospitals and everything else. How's the best way to support the whole community? Because it's not just about the individual farmer when it reaches that point. It's about how do you support that whole community, and how do you keep their business? Because if they all pack up and go, they're going to move to the city where there's not enough infrastructure. So it requires bigger picture thinking, I think, because the whole nation is too reactive, even our policymakers, governments, and they just say, oh, well, it's just climate change. And it may well be climate change, not a scientist, I don't know. And it may be going to be more frequent and more intense. So it makes sense that we should be planning a bit better for these sorts of incidents instead of just saying, oh, well, that's just climate change. Live with it. And it's such a hard conversation to have because so many people don't believe in climate change, or if they do believe in climate change, that they don't believe it's having the impact that it's having. And I'm not here to tell you what to believe. You believe what you want to do. I care, but if that's the policy position that the government's taken, okay, then put your money where your mouth is. If that's what's going to happen, put things in place that are going to support the communities that are going to be impacted by this. And that's what needs to happen. And charities, God love them, they do a lot of good work. But I've been on the receiving end of some of those charitable donations a couple of times. One year, we're still living in Queensland, I got a garbage bag full of secondhand clothes that didn't fit. And I don't even know why I was given, because we weren't even particularly droughted. We weren't destitute or anything like that. And there were also things that we just sent them straight to the shed for rags. That was very insulting and disheartening. Another time when we've moved to South Australia, I got a care package been carefully put together from a community group, and it included some hand-knitted woolen socks, beautiful craftsmanship, completely pointless. A heap of beanies, 10 beanies. I don't know what I was going to do with all those beanies, and some cosmetic/body creams, including an open tube of 60 Time Intimate lotion that someone had already tried out and obviously didn't like, so they thought they'd give it to a charity, and then they gave it to me. And please don't do that. Give me a gift card so I could at least go and buy some decent shampoo and conditioner and toilet paper. Give me a gift card or something so I can make sure the kids have got new shoes or something like that. Please don't give people opened cosmetics that you didn't like or enjoy, because it's something on my body and I don't know where it's come from. That's revolting. But yeah, and they just want to help. A lot of these just want to help. But yeah, I think the best people who I've noticed to do this crisis response when actually helping the people is the CWA. They've if there's ever going to be an organisation, and they were in the last drought, they were tasked with helping out individual families and communities, and they should only ones, I believe. They're the only ones who know the communities. They're the only ones who know what we want and need for it, because they're better in these rural communities.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So AgFabs, if you're listening and you want to donate something, reach out to a local CWA branch, or a branch that's in a drought affected area. We will also put together a list. We'll probably bring it out. Do you want to bring it out as a social tile, Gillian?
Yeah, probably put some social tiles up, and when we get a website, which is in the works for it around mid-October, we'll get there eventually, because, we're busy. When we get our website, we'll put all these things on the website as well, so everything will have a home and you can find everything there.
So to wrap probably this topic up just slightly, I will highlight maybe some key areas that you and I previously spoke about off camera that can go around these donations. So, in pet care, because there's nothing worse than having to get rid of a family pet or give away a family pet during a crisis like this, because you can't afford food, or you can't afford like medical stuff for your pets. So that's always great to donate. Personal hygiene products, as Gillian covered, don't open them. Not used ones, ones that have not been opened, that still have the seal on them. Anything that can be classified as self-care, comfort items, children's education and entertainment sets that can be flat packed, that can be sent in the post or packed into a nice little box. And I guess we can go into a little bit of practical tools, food, drink. We'll put those in the social posts. So to wrap up this topic for today, Gillian, did you have any final sentences that you wanted to put in?
I would just like to say that charities, you're doing good work. Maybe talk to the community that you're trying to help first. And I know that can be challenging in itself, because they might not even be in a position to help and communicate. And the way to interact with communities have come so far in at least the past 10 years that I'm aware of. But it's the needs of the people have changed, and the way we live and operate has changed. And nothing helps someone out better than cold, hard cash. And that's the long and the short of it, to be completely honest, because it also then keeps your communities afloat. If you can then take your gift card and you can spend it at your local IGA, or you can spend it at your local hardware store or pet shop, whatever, it keeps the community ticking along.
Yeah, keep that economy going round and round. So, Gillian, before we jump into the AgriFuture Awards, let's do a quick catch up on the AgFabs. Was there any communication or reach outs that you received this week from our beautiful followers about feedback on any other episodes we did, any chiming in?
I have had a rural person reach out to me, a rural woman, and she said she rarely listens to podcasts anymore, but she really enjoyed our chats. So that's someone like listening to us. So it's, we haven't received on the socials, we haven't received any negative feedback so far, which is good, and I'm really pleased. And I just hope people are enjoying it and talk to us. Like, if you want to reach out to us, we're pretty open and approachable. Like, tell us what you want to hear and tell us what you want us to talk about. If there's something that you hear about and you have an opinion on, but you can't because of the way you live or what you do, just flick us an email, or we don't have it. Oh, we've got an email, but drop us a message on one of the socials would be the easiest, and we'll add it to a list.
We love hearing from you, everybody. So keep that up. As most other podcasts, when we do a shout out for this next bit, please subscribe and review on wherever you are downloading your podcast from. It does help people find us, continue the conversation. If we are talking about something that you find an important topic, relatable, or just hilarious, even if it's the complete opposite to what you believe, do share with your friends and family or your network who will think the same of it. So let's jump in to the AgriFuture Awards. Gillian, I'm going to let you have the main conversation around this, because you were there, you were on the ground. Run us through the event, the highs, the lows, the pros, the cons. Let's get into it.
It was a lovely event. Nearly everyone, when we'll get to this in a moment, so like the women, like I would have hated to select channel for a start, because every single project that all these women were doing was so incredible, and they've done such amazing things in their community. And like, how could you do that? To be completely honest. So, you know, it sounds very like, oh, everyone's a winner. Every one of those women already are a winner because they are kicking goals and they're smashing it. And they're also diverse and different in what they're doing. And that was amazing. Like a who's who of Australian agriculture, to be honest, everyone was there. And then, because, you know, these events all run to a very similar thing. You had the, you know, taking the photos, fancy gowns, blah, 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 go inside, sit down, have some beautiful food. And the food was quite nice. And then we had our Prime Minister address the crowd and make a very poorly advised joke about having dinner with the Indonesian Minister, and dropped a clanger about live export and making sure it was dead. And everyone, like, you could, like, everyone, huh? Like, no one could believe that those words in that sort of order had come out of this man's mouth. And he looked up and he was a smile on his face, like he was so pleased with himself, and the rest of the room was just like, what the hell? I didn't find it, it was offensive, not so personally offensive, but I found it incredibly disrespectful to agriculture and the women who were there and women who were getting those awards, because they are all from, even if they're not directly involved in agriculture, they're from agricultural communities, and they live in remote and rural communities, regional communities that are propped up by agriculture. It was disrespectful to make a joke at the expense of another industry in a room full of people who are thinking the similar things, like, what if my industry is next? And I don't know if he decided to say that off the cuff, or if some person actually wrote that in a speech. If someone did actually sit there and think about that and write that down, they should be sacked, because that's appalling. Because the Prime Minister shouldn't be put in a position of having to read that and say that. And I know how these things work. You give it a speech and you just read it and whatever. He also shouldn't have said it. And he won't apologise, because apparently we all took it out of context. So that's not important whether the context took it. It was disrespectful to the event. It was disrespectful to the people who were there, and it's disrespectful to agriculture as a whole. And while I'm on the topic of disrespect, we'll talk about our current agricultural minister. And I've thought long and hard about this, because I know what it's like to be a woman in the public sphere and for people to judge you on your appearance and your behaviour. And I don't want to be one of those, like, nasty women who just picks on women for no real benefit. This was a black tie event. Men were wearing tuxedos. They at least had suit jackets on. Women were full-length gowns, or even if they wore pants, they had beautiful pantsuits on, hair done, makeup done. Julie Collins, our agriculture minister, had on a pair of slacks and a T-shirt. It was a nice T-shirt. It was probably a very expensive T-shirt, but it was slacks and a T-shirt, not even a jacket. And that act of disrespect. The award winners especially, this was their night of nights. This was their Oscar moment. All of their photos, all of their press, where they are looking amazingly glamorous. They now have all these photos with the minister in, because she was the one giving out the awards, and she looks like she's ducking down to the shops. And that is disrespectful to them. It was disrespectful to the event, and it's disrespectful to agriculture. And it's, people might say, oh, well, she was in chambers and, you know, she had to work, etc., etc. She also has people who could have said, here, Julie, slip on this lovely jacket over the top of your thing, and you know, you'll look fine. You'll fit into the black tie event. And it was no effort was made to reflect the caliber of the event, and that was disrespectful. And I think that unacceptable from our elected representatives, regardless of where your politics lie, whether you're in the left, right, centre, whatever you want to call yourself. The people at that event deserved respect from our government. They didn't get it. And I think that's the whole thing about it. And I think I really feel for those ladies whose event was, that their night of nights has been sort of disrespected in that manner.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very sorry.
I love the passion and the drive behind that. I love that you were there and you could actually give us a first point of view of what happened that event. And I think we can really link that experience back into episode 3. We spoke about the New South Wales Farming Survey, the Priority Survey, and, you know, 25%, don't think the public respect farming, and the government doesn't respect farming. 23% said the future, is bright for farming. So the rest of the farmers that participated in that survey are probably feeling, or are feeling, that government's disrespect, which is feeding back into the agricultural environment, we spoke about everything in agriculture is confidence based. And when you have your government turning up to an event like that and showing so much disrespect, then how can that go back into the agriculture as a whole across the nation when this is the night of nights? These people have been doing the best they can for agriculture. I think that links perfectly back in with episode 3.
And it's that lack of respect. Like, you don't have to like us. You do not have to like farmers. You do not have to like the people who are in agriculture. But we're an important industry who does, well, apart from the fact that we feed and clothe people, we feed and clothe a lot of the world, because Australia punches well above its weight when it comes to what we can do here. You don't have to like us, but we are owed a little bit of respect for the fact that we are really good at our jobs. And it's that, and, I just can't, when I think about how obvious the disrespect is, it's just gobsmacking, to be frank. I can't imagine doing it to any other industry. Turning up to a black tie event, making a stupid joke, and then refusing to apologise for it, and then not taking the dress code into account. It'd be like if I turned up to Parliament in a pair of jeans and a T-shirt. I wouldn't even be allowed in the door, because you have dress codes for a reason for these things. And, this is not about excluding people who don't have access to, fancy dresses or whatever. She's a minister. It was a black tie event. She was aware. And, I just can't fathom it. And you can look up the photos online and make your own assessment on whether what she wore was suitable or not. And there were other ladies there in trousers and pantsuits and those sorts of things, and they looked great because they were appropriately dressed. They looked like they're ducking down the shops. It's not about not about wearing pants. It's not about not wearing a gown. It's about the dress and who she was. She's a minister. Like, come on.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those who have not seen the state finalists, I will link the state finalists' videos about their projects, about what they've achieved in the comment section below, in the show notes below. Tanya and Grace, congratulations on being the winners, on being the runner-up, and everybody else who was there. You deserve to be there. You have done an incredible amount of work already for the industry. We cannot wait to see what else comes from yourselves and your projects, whether they are your current projects or the ones you are going to run into the future. Amazing work, ladies. We are so glad that you were there representing us as a whole, as well as yourselves and your communities. Amazing, amazing work. I'm going to link that below because we're running out of time.
Nominations are open for the awards for next year. So if you have an amazing project that you would like to bring forward and we can talk about, nominate yourself. And the only way to get anywhere is to put yourself out there, and you will get more support than you realize, because the world's a big place. And, you deserve it. Put yourself out there. If you back yourself, get stuck into it.
And for those who are listening, if you know someone who is putting huge amounts of effort and love and passion into a project in the agricultural community, and you don't think that they would nominate themselves, you can always flag them, nominate them, push them to apply. It's all well worth it as well.
Definitely. Support each other. That's what we're for. We don't like to talk shit, but we are all about supporting and empowering the individual to be the they want to be. It's not about fitting into a box that you think you have to fit into. If you do what you want, and be awesome. And we acknowledge it.
And I think we've lost Gillian there, so I'm going to cut the connection, and we will see you all next week.